Dennis Corchain, Tina Lammy, and Martha Greenwood. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Moved.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. We'll do a roll call vote. Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Thank you. Let me see if I can unmute Patty. I saw that she was on here. Let's see, Patty, can you? Yes, Patty, you should be able to speak. Do you have any questions about this, Patty? Or comments for us? All right, any questions from the board? And I'm wondering if Randall Medley is on the call. If you would like to say anything, Randall, I do see you. I will unmute you. I think you have to unmute yourself if you'd like to say anything, Randy. All right, looks like we have no comments. Do I have a motion to approve the change of directors?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. We'll have a roll call vote. Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Andrea? Aye. Thank you. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So
So
moved.
moved.
The second?
Second.
Second.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark, Tom?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Was just pausing for a moment here. I think we're a minute early. We have a public hearing. It's a request for an alteration of a licensed premises on an MGL Chapter 138, Section 12, all alcohol beverages package store license at Sanina Inc., DBA Craft Beer Cellar, 142 Littleton Road. Do I have a motion to go in to open the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Scott,
Yes. Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Patty, any comments? And anything from the manager, Sarika, I believe it is? Any questions from the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
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 Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. We're now a little bit ahead. I want to do something else before we get to our 7:10. I want to wait the 5 minutes till we get to the 7:10 public hearing. Let's jump ahead to our consent agenda. We have a request to approve the following. We have banner requests. The first event is the Westford Academy Class of 2020. The applicant is the Westford Education Foundation, Sarah Biscoff. The dates will be Friday, May 29th, 2020 to Monday, June 8th, 2020. The location is First Parish Church. We have a request for the annual town meeting on Saturday, June 20th, 2020. The applicant is Donna Furman from the League of Women Voters of Westford. The dates of the banner will be Friday, June 12th, 2020 to Monday, June 22nd, 2020. The location, First Parish Church. The third one is an event, the annual town election on Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. The applicant is Donna Furman from the League of Women Voters of Westford. The dates will be Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 to Friday, July 3rd, 2020, and the location is First Parish Church. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, Scott,
Aye.
Mark, Tom,
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and do minutes for approval. We have minutes from our regular session for release on April 7th, 2020 and April 14th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I have minutes from executive session not for release from April 14th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Thank you. Let's see, we still have 2 more minutes here. Anybody have anything under board reports or updates? Yes, Mark.
Yeah, so just we're in the process, Jody and Dan are of scheduling a capital committee meeting for either Monday or Tuesday of next week to consider some changes to the initial recommendation given the situations with funding for the town. So hopefully we'll come out with a revised recommendation out of that meeting.
Thank you. And I would just provide the update from the community garden that the town staff has been helping to open the garden. And the plan is still to open the garden in a few weeks, a little bit later, but relying much more on town staff this year to perform the opening work that the gardeners used to do. The gardeners are eager to get started, and I think what we've seen in the past few weeks since we last discussed this, that food security continues to be an issue and concern in a lot of different ways, you know, both individuals and their employment and job security, and also on a broader scale in terms of food security in our food system. So I think the gardeners are, you know, grateful to the board for supporting the opening of the garden, and the leaders certainly working on ways to ensure social distancing and safety at the garden. And I just want to thank the town staff who've been part of tilling the garden and getting the water turned on and helping with all those opening steps. It's looking good. Yes, Scott?
Have any update on self-opening gates and the water shut off?
Yes, so John Rivas told us today they think they have something for the gates. So that looks like that problem will be solved, and we're still working on the water.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. All right, it's 7:10, so let's have our public hearing to request to approve an MGL Chapter 138, Section 15, wine and malt package store license at Big Apple Market and Deli, LLC, DBA, Big Apple Market and Deli, 294 Littleton Road. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Scott,
Yes.
Mark,
Yep.
Tom?
Aye.
Andrea?
Yes.
Thank you. Patty, do you want to say anything about this one? All right. Does the board do any of the board members have questions about this? And I'm wondering if the manager, Ibrahim Aboud, if you have any comments, I will unmute you, Ibrahim. Looks like you might be self-muted if you're trying to speak. All right, let's proceed with the vote on this then.
Move to
Motion.
approve.
Second.
Thank you. We'll take a roll call vote. Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you for everyone's patience with those public hearings. I know it's a little more tedious in this format. All right, so our next item is an update for the community on the COVID-19 situation and impact on the residents of town operations during this period. Jody, would you like to take over this part?
Sure. Just briefly, I think last week, most people know the governor did decide to not reopen schools for the rest of the school year. We will continue to have remote learning, and that did impact different things for the town, which the board will continue to discuss. As of today, the governor continued the social distancing, which he had made a announcement that it was going to be reconsidered on May 4th, and he brought that to May 18th. And we will be talking to the governor's office about plans to reopen. I think he formed a 19-member task force today to start looking at how they're going to reopen. And I think it's really going to be based on what businesses they feel can safely reopen with social distancing. So we'll be giving input to that process moving forward. I think the other thing I would mention is that the Board of Health did meet, I believe it was yesterday, and they did make some further recommendations, which I did send to you earlier today. They did close the skate park. They asked us not to put up the tennis nets. I'm getting a little feedback for some reason. And one thing they did ask for your input on is they were considering whether to require people to wear masks if they were leaving their residences or any business they were going into. And they did want to hear from you all if you had any input in that.
Any comments from the board? Mark?
So are they looking for approval? What is it that they're looking for as it relates to this thing? They want our recommendation that everybody should wear a mask when they go outside?
Well, so they're elected, as you know, so they can make their own decisions. I think some of the other measures, they went ahead and voted, but I think they had some concerns just implementing a mandatory mask. And there were questions about who would enforce. I don't know if Jeff Stevens is out there, Elizabeth. I don't know if you see him out there.
Let me see if I can find him.
But I think before they take that measure, they wanted input. I am addressing that with the department heads tomorrow, because I think, you know, we have a couple of concerns, like what if people don't have masks? Maybe not everybody has a mask. Who's going to enforce this? We don't want to turn this into the police trying to enforce people wearing masks. So I am putting together from a town staff perspective what our concerns are. But they did ask me, it's not on your agenda, but we do have COVID. So just today, they asked me to see if any of you had any input before they make that decision.
Andrea?
So I guess one of my questions is I don't understand, you know, what is the scope of this that they're asking for? Is it when you're out in public at all? Is it entering when you're in a store, you know, when you're in a business? You know, so I would like to understand exactly what they are looking to do, because I think my response may be different depending upon what the scope is of what they're looking to do.
Mark?
Okay, I'm trying to pull that up right now. I don't know if Jeff is at the meeting, but
He's not on, Jody, not that I can see.
I'll find that while you're asking.
So I'm certainly not in favor of a mandatory program. Of course, we should recommend that people use the proper precautions when they're going into a physical location where they may not be able to be more than 6 feet, or may not be able to be 6 feet apart or more to have a mask. But I'm not in favor of a mandatory wearing of masks.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, two things. One, I guess I'd like to know the rationale for not having nets on tennis courts. It seems like outdoor tennis, you know, what, 4 people playing if you get doubles seems like a bit extreme to me. So I'm kind of curious how they got that rationale. As to the masks, I think we've learned, at least as a state, that people will do the right thing if you ask them and recommend it. And if you try to force them, they say, you can't force me. So my feeling is you recommend it, you urge it, but you don't try to make it a mandatory thing. And I think most people will do the right thing.
I agree.
And
I agree
would
with
like,
that too.
if the town is going to spend resources in terms of enforcement, I would like that, those resources to be spent on public education and persuading people to do it, rather than doing it in an enforcement way that, you know, then becomes punitive. I know I've heard of towns enacting fines if you're not wearing a mask in public, but I'd much rather see our town staff's time and our town's resources go to convincing people in a positive way to participate in this. Yes, Tom?
Just to echo that, I think most towns have fallen down on the side of education and positive persuasion. I think there are a few out there that have talked about getting some kind of enforcement and fine regime going, and I think it's been, big problem and seen a lot of pushback. So I think the path we're on is the right one.
And I also think about our public safety or, Board of Health folks, anyone who would be enforcing it, then we're asking those individuals to approach perhaps get closer than 6 feet to somebody who's not wearing a mask, which I think goes against what we're trying to do in terms of focusing our resources, on the greatest need in our town.
I did just check, and it's basically mandatory in any buildings. So that would be stores, town buildings, any buildings at all. And I think Jeff did express concerns, who's going to enforce this? So so I will share your input with them, when they'll meet again, and I will ask your question, Scott. My understanding on the skate park is that one of the health staff noticed that there were lots of people at the skate park, and that concerned him. I did express my concerns for locking people up and not letting them play tennis. A family could play tennis, or a couple, or whatever, but I think they felt that they would be touching the same ball. And so I think that I didn't watch their meeting, but they said if golf isn't allowed, tennis shouldn't be allowed, but.
Yeah,
I agree with Scott. You're talking about 4 people, playing tennis. It's a family, people do, or usually are friends. And, at some point, I do think that you need to let people, they need to be able to make their own decisions, and their decisions for themselves, and what they feel safe with and what they don't feel safe with. And for each one of us, it's an individual decision. And, some of us feel safer doing some things than other things. But I think, it's an outdoor activity. It's getting nice out. The governor is extended everything till May 18th. I think we need to give people the opportunity and the ability to be outside. And to me, tennis seems to be, it should be up to any individual to decide whether or not tennis is risky for him or her.
right.
I think Elizabeth is off for some technical reasons, so until she comes back, do we as a group have do we want to hear in any more detailed way the rationale behind the decision for the tennis court? Is that what we're asking for?
I think so. I mean, technically, I guess it's the Board of Health's decision, but I'd really like to know the rationale behind that. And I think we can also express, or have Jody express to the Board of Health, because my understanding is they're going to discuss this again at their May 11th meeting, that the board, has concerns and questions and isn't supporting. Well, I don't know if it is. At least some members of the board are not fully in support of it.
Yeah, I at least would have some questions. Scott, did you have a question?
Well, it's just, I want to, what I would just observe is any doctor that I've read, seen on TV, on the internet, has said the same thing. The best defense against any disease, COVID or anything else, is fresh air, exercise, sunshine. So I think my own personal, opinion, if asked to the Board of Health, is whatever we do that allows people to safely enjoy exercise, sunshine, and fresh air, we should encourage. Just my thought.
Okay, so this is their authority, but feedback from us to them, it sounds like is, we'd like to err on the side of giving people whatever outside recreation opportunities that we can in this time.
So for the record, they did not ask your opinion about the tennis courts and the skate park, and they have directed those things to be closed, and they do have the authority, so we will close them. And I will not put up the nets on the tennis for 2 weeks as they directed. They did ask for your input on masks, and I will share all of your input, but at this point, those facilities are closed. They left the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail open, and so that's a good thing.
Yes, Mark.
So do they have the authority to mandate people wear masks in public, in any building?
I think they do. They have broad authority in a pandemic. So my understanding is they do. Now, they don't have the authority to tell me to have the police enforce it. And we will not have the police enforce it, but they do have broad authority to dictate something like that.
Okay, well, good. I think we've shared the
Even
feedback where they
without,
asked for it.
even with us as being the exec,
The Board of Health is elected. They do not report to the Board of Selectmen.
no, I know that. But I
Yeah,
guess,
they have broad authority, but I will, if it would make you feel more comfortable, I could ask council about these specific items and see if I don't have the correct information, but everything to date I've gotten is they have the authority to make these decisions.
Okay, well, good. They have our feedback on one thing they asked for and another thing that they didn't, but we're always free with our feedback. The next item here, I think, is review draft timeline, necessary financial appropriations as a result of the delayed town meeting. So Jody, should we move to that one?
Yes, so in your packets, and maybe Eric, if you could pull this up, and I believe Dan is out there. Tom, do you have access to allow Dan to participate? If not, I think Eric can.
Yeah, I think Eric does. I don't think I'm set up as a administrator.
Okay,
I can
so-
join on.
You have to
Oh,
take
there's
a.
Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Hi, Dan. So anyway, what we did, and Dan's going to walk you through this, and for the public at home, is we tried to look at what were items that we felt, town staff felt, and this did not go to capital yet, Mark, but what town staff felt were most critical and that couldn't even wait for a June 20 town meeting. So Dan, and then we've got it broken down by that category. And we were basically asking the selectmen and the finance committee to meet on May 12th for us to make these requests for you to transfer for these items. And then we have the town meeting column, and then what we can defer until October or later. So Dan, if you want to walk us through.
Sure. So a little over a week ago, we had a meeting with a bunch of the department heads to go through and actually determine what articles at the annual town meeting need to happen now and what can be deferred till either June or October or a later date. So this was a collaborative input that we wanted to start off with as a draft document for just our basis moving forward. So in this document, basically it's listed by article number of the formal warrant for the annual town meeting, and then it describes what article it is and the amount that we're requesting. As you can see, we have 5 critical appropriations that we're looking to fund prior to the June 20th scheduled town meeting. The first up is the veterans expenses. If we don't get this appropriation sometime in May, we can't make those June 1st disbursements. So that is highly critical to do. The next up is the Article 4, which is the police department transfer to fund fuel cost and some educational cost. Next up is computers to both the town and school. There's been a high demand for computers for town employees, as a lot of people are working remotely at this point, and we don't have anything left in the budget. And Mike Wells has indicated that for the schools, in order for the incoming freshmen in September to have their Chromebooks, they need to order those by the end of May. So they have enough time to set up the 400 Chromebooks for those students. And lastly, we had a new request at the bottom of the page. It's new street sweeper. We had a very substantial repair needed to the current street sweeper. So financially, it probably makes sense to actually purchase a new one at this time. I think our current machine's 8 years old, rather than invest tens of thousands of dollars in a repair to an aging piece of equipment. So overall,
And just for an update, I got hot off the press about 6 p.m. that sweeper with a trade-in will be $211,000. So just so you know that.
I will update that amount. Thank you.
All right.
So the timeline is we're taking a look at these tonight. We're going to ask for some direction regarding a transfer at the next meeting, and in between now and then, the capital committee will have a chance to meet and add their opinion to this.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Andrea?
because Dan, just tell me what the total amount is so I don't have to sit here and add it up myself.
Sure. So the amount of appropriations that we looked at were 26.7 million. We're looking for 344,000 to be funded prior to town meeting.
Minus about 14,000.
Minus 9,000. Yeah, 335,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the mechanism for that, Jody or Dan or Mark, maybe you know, is would we allocate that then from free cash that would come out of the capital requests we'd be making at town meeting, or what's the mechanism?
Yeah. It's actually Chapter 44, Section 33B transfer, which allows the Selectmen and FinCom to transfer funds between budgets at the end of the year. So in May, June, and the first 15 days in July, you can authorize a transfer.
Okay, thanks for helping me out. Other questions or comments from the board? Okay, Eric, you may be able to see if there's anyone raising their hand out in the public that may have a question or comment.
Okay, I'll check it out. We have one hand raised, but I think it's for a different, I think it's for the rail trail later on. So I think you're good right now, Tom.
Okay. Super. If there are no other questions or discussion on that, and next time we get together, we'll be hearing from the capital committee and then be able to discuss that. Jody, do you want to discuss the potential joint meeting coming up?
Yes, so, hold on, sorry. I thought we were going to talk more about that sheet, but that's okay. We'll move right along. So, yes, so as Dan mentioned, the board has the authority to transfer funds at our next meeting. We wanted you to have a preview tonight. We're asking you if you would like us to call that meeting on the 12th, but we do think these things are critical to move forward on. So with your blessing, and there's Elizabeth back. With
She's
your
back.
blessing, we will call that meeting at the next, for the 12th.
I think that sounds great. And I've had my Al Haig moment, Elizabeth, so I'll pass the chair back to you. Use control in the vacuum. Elizabeth, are you, can you hear us? Okay, maybe Elizabeth is still working on connecting. Okay.
Okay.
We will
Yeah,
keep
she-
going. I'm sorry, Jody, didn't mean to cut you off.
All right. So we will post that meeting, and what Dan just reviewed, that column will be the primary thing that we are asking you to vote, but also take a look at the other articles for the upcoming town meeting. So speaking of the town meeting and the election, we've been working town staff on trying to figure out how we're going to run those different items. And Patty, I don't know, I know Patty's out there, but she seems to be muted. Eric or Elizabeth, is there a possibility to try to unmute her again?
She's set up as a panelist, so she can just unmute herself.
She seems to be having difficulty unmuting herself. Let's see if she's going to speak. Okay, well, so we are concerned about the town meeting. We are trying to generate ideas of how to do this safely, but with social distancing, town meeting is posing some significant challenges. The legislature just approved for people that have representative town meetings to hold virtual. We don't have a representative town meeting, so we're still looking at options. on that. The election, there's a hand
Scott,
up.
did you have a question?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Have we thought about one of our larger, like either the academy or the Sunnybrook? We've got both a auditorium and a gym. Could you use like both spaces to get enough separation of people? You have to do a video camera for one or the other, but it's sort of how we buy more space given weather concerns, and what's the biggest building with the most rooms that could possibly make it work safely?
I think some of the concerns that have been posed is people need to get checked in, so they need to get fairly close to someone to get checked in. Then typically we may give them a ballot, or we may give them a voting thing. There's microphones that multiple people might touch and stand by. What kind of masks are people going to wear? We don't have N95s to give them, so it's kind of up to people, or where are we going to get masks to put on them? Gloves, if somebody's sick, how far are they going to spread it? So we're working on different options, but I think the legislature seems to think lowering the quorum helped, but that doesn't mean you can control how many people want to show up and how many we have to prepare for. So Paul Murray had a lot of ideas that he shared that I reviewed, but it is a challenge because I think people are afraid that they're going to get infected, and I think staff is afraid they're going to get infected. So we're trying to figure out town meeting. I think the election seems to be a lot easier because most of that can be done through absentee ballots. At this point, she still will have to open all the polls, but it could be much greater social distancing controlled with people coming in. We could allow, one person in at a time or whatever, that sort of thing. But I think the town meeting, we have not figured that out yet. So we're brainstorming.
Andrea?
So I have a couple of questions just about the elections, because I've been getting some questions about the elections. So my first one is are absentee ballots available now?
I don't know. I mean, Patty's out there, but she can't seem to speak for some reason. I can find that out. I'm sure she's working on them, but I don't know if they're available right now.
So I would want to know that. And then I think somehow that we should get the message out to folks and do education that people are going to be able to vote by absentee in our town elections in June, so that for anybody who is concerned, they can, and to really, to lay out the procedure, to get an absentee ballot, that you have to file an application, you have to make sure that the ballot is back to town hall by the day of the election. So I think that we should think about doing some sort of education for the public about absentee balloting. Because I know these are, I'm getting, questions about, how are we going to vote and where are we going to vote, and timing of voting and, et cetera. So it would be helpful to have the answers to those questions.
I know we're working on that, and we have a small group working on it. Patty is sending me text right now because she can't seem to speak. But he did get bids on the ballots. She's expecting to have them by mid-May. She's on it. She says on the education. I think at first she had reached out to election workers to see who would work, and no one answered her. I think
Right.
that situation has changed a little bit. But these are big deals, and they're very complex. She's also, I know she's not texting me this, but she's reaching out to her town clerks association. We're posing questions to the legislature, but it's very complicated. But we recognize the public needs to know what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So we are working on it, and the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll have some recommendations, Jody, at either the next meeting or potentially the one after that about what our best option for town meeting is, and also maybe spending a little bit of time on how we want to do voter education and all the different parts go into making a good election?
So we have a lot of ideas about, I think the election, as I said, I think that's going to be fine. I just think we need to lay it all out, get the proper equipment, educate the public. But I think the town meeting is going to be a challenge. And I think our concern is we don't want one person to get sick. And so how do we get possibly a couple hundred people together and keep them safe? And particularly right now, we couldn't even do it because the governor still has upheld 10 people. So how are we going to allow 200 or 300 people? So it's a challenge. We're working on it. We haven't figured it out yet. And, you know, I think whatever happens on May 18th with the governor and going into June will help us. We don't have to hold a town meeting, you know that. We can continue with minimum 1/12 budget. The big problem is we've got some funds to fund the necessary things right now that we're talking about tonight, but the next group, we can't do that without right now a town meeting. I did pose some questions today whether the selectmen could, with FinCom, make some decisions about capital if we delay the town meeting till July. But, you know, laws are changing every day. We're not getting good information from the governor's office about this yet. You know, we are looking at outside venues. You know, could we hold it in the Abbott Field with people spaced? But still, how do you keep people from touching the same
Jody.
microphone? I don't know if anyway, so we're working on it. Ideas are welcome.
Okay, Scott?
Can you get, I mean, this occurred to me, maybe a really dumb idea, but can you be remote? What if you had town meeting at each of the precincts? So, which are always schools, right? So you'd have only a critical mass in each school. So you wouldn't have 200 one place. You may have 50 in one place, and at 50 you might get in under a guideline by then. Just you have to think of a means to, you know, electronically hook them up and vote, but it works for elections.
So we don't have that means right now because one of you had suggested having a school and putting people in different rooms throughout the school, but we don't have the technological capabilities to have multiple, you know, that many different sites all hooked up together. But, you know, and we don't need to get bogged down right now either, but we can give you thoughts we have and ideas, but it hasn't been figured out yet because we haven't figured out how to meet and keep everybody safe at this point.
Yeah, it seems like as we get closer, the maximum number of people you can have in one room will be clarified. It'll be clear what other towns are thinking about. So I'm sure this will be a dynamic situation as we approach that date. Andrea, did you have another question?
I just wanted to ask with respect to the elections, I would like to be able to, you know, have that on our agenda for our first meeting in May to publicly discuss, you know, what's going to happen with elections, what the procedures are, what the policies are, you know, absentee balloting, because at that point you're about 6 weeks or 7 weeks away from the election, and I think we need to get that information out.
I think it's a great suggestion. Any other comments from the board? And Elizabeth, do we have you back yet?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Oh, great.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Hi.
Thank you.
I'm reluctantly passing back the baton.
Actually, if let me raise my hand.
Sure, go ahead,
I have a
Tom.
question. So my question actually jumps back one, and I apologize for doing this to you, Jody. My question was, now that we know that basically the schools are not going to reconvene until the fall, and the governor's shutdown date is moved, I was wondering if there was a need for having any kind of executive session on the 12th before we have the joint boards meeting where we're talking about some of the capital decisions. I'm just not sure if there's a need for that or not. I don't have anything specific yet, but I know we did have a meeting along those lines, and the situation we were facing at the time, we made the decisions that we made. I don't know if the conditions have changed enough that we should get back together and revisit.
So we just, we put out a doodle poll. I didn't take note if every single member of our board responded, but with our board and the school committee, and this morning I saw that a majority could attend on May 5th. So I think we haven't sent that communication out yet. But we do intend to have a joint meeting with school committee and select board the evening of May 5th to discuss some of those same issues, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
That should give us time before the May 12th meeting. We wanted to have a little bit of lead time then before the May 12th meeting.
Thanks.
And I may have missed it. Did Emily Teller get to make a comment while I was gone?
No,
She had a comment about the rail trail. I'm not sure if you were discussing the rail trail. Emily, I'll unmute you if you are still there and want to comment. Emily,
I'm sorry, yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. you're on.
Okay, am I unmuted? Sorry, I was just dealing with my granddaughter. I wanted to let you know that I have not heard of a more recent vote, but the Acton Board of Health did close the North Acton parking lot completely by putting some tape over it for the rail trail, Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. There are 2 members on the Acton Board of Health who would like to shut it down, the whole rail trail, but so far they've been outvoted. They also have restricted parking in the NARA, the NARA Park parking lot. But there's no coordination between towns, and I think maybe that's a good thing if
I think we lost the end of that comment. Do any board members have any comments about the rail trail?
let you know that every town is doing its own thing.
Okay. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
And I know our Board of Health did discuss the rail trail, and they've not made any motion or recommendation related to the rail trail. So at this point, the Westford section is open and folks are welcome to use it, but encouraged to do so respectfully. All right, I think we're ready to move on to item number 3 under the COVID-19, and that is to discuss holding a joint Board of Selectmen, School Committee, and Finance Committee meeting on May 12th. And this has to do with the financial decisions that we had intended to make at the town meeting in March, and knowing that impacts all 3, the town functions with the school committee, but also the finance committee needs to be part of making some short-term decisions. Yes, Tom?
We did, Elizabeth, touch on items 3 and 4 in that
Okay.
group, but we can certainly go back and revisit or have additional discussion. But we did touch
Okay.
on them.
Excellent. No, that's fine. Are we ready to move on to number 5 then? Okay. Jody, do you want to talk about that one and the memo from Ryan?
Ryan
Jody,
out there?
Yeah, he's actually on a line.
Okay. Let's
I
let
am
him
here.
speak. Hi, Ryan. Go ahead.
Okay, so you got my memo.
Yes,
We were
thank you.
considering doing a video for Memorial Day instead of the normal observance to continue with the social distancing because it's quite impossible for parades and having the large crowds throughout town. It would still consist of everything pretty much, the honor roll, the speeches, the prayers. We can also include a lot more cemetery pictures, laying the flags, monuments, raising and lowering of the flag. We can have in the video. And the only downside to this right now is we got to get started on this ASAP. We've already been talking with Westford Cat a lot, but he needs most of the video uploads of the speeches and everything by May 16th, so he can start editing it. And there's a lot of moving parts to it, and I'm still reaching out to some people to get more participants as well. I'll be reaching out to one of you as well if you would like to speak. We can touch base on that later. It's just pretty much to avoid the large gatherings, and there's lots of aging veterans that are high risk, and I don't want to expose them or the public to more of this.
Thank you, Ryan. And I appreciate your memo. I'm very sorry to have to cancel this event this year. I think this is always a meaningful time for our community, but when I read your memo and the reminder that many of our veterans are in the high-risk category, I think it is a responsible decision, and I appreciate the substitute you're working on so that residents can still have an opportunity to reflect and think about Memorial Day, even if we can't be together. Scott?
Yeah, so this was actually I was looking up, what did we do in 1918 with the Spanish flu epidemic and Memorial Day? One of the interesting things is Philadelphia had a big parade for Memorial Day.
Yeah,
one
look what happened.
infection rate from Spanish flu. So, absolutely the right decision, Ryan, to not do this. We've learned it less than 100 years ago, and it was very expensive. I had two thoughts, though. One was, I was out Saturday, and I got caught behind one of the drive-bys for birthday parties. So, is there some way to organize something similar to drive-by veterans' homes on Memorial Day and beep our horn and wave? That was one thought. The second thought was, as I think about the list of names we read every Memorial Day, these are men and women who didn't give ground to British muskets at Lexington Green, and up through didn't give ground to suicide bombers at in Afghanistan. I don't really want to give our comment to the virus. So can we just have a sort of one person, maybe it's Ryan and two people playing taps on the common, just to say we have a presence on Memorial Day?
Yes, drive-by parade that was mentioned as something we're still looking into as well. As far as the honor roll and taps at the common, I can always reach out to Michael Sue to see if that is possible as well.
No, not a roll. Just like one person saying it's Memorial Day. Like you're having a really great idea for a montage from Westford Cat, right? Of all the speeches. Could that be like introduced from the common? That's all I'm saying, is just that sort of physical presence. I'm here. It's our day. The flag is here, and now a ticket live or ticket to tape for all the other speeches.
Okay, so you're looking for to have taps on the common as well, just to have the presence?
That's just a suggestion. You can tell me I'm nuts.
No, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I have to reach out to Michael Sue to see if that's possible. We're trying to get taps as well for the laying of the flags in the cemetery for part of the video as well.
Tom?
I just want to make sure that if whatever plans we have, we're taking into account the health and safety of the Westford Cat folks. That often it takes a couple of them to pull something together. So I guess I don't know, Scott, if you were thinking about just symbolically saying there's someone there. I mean, actually having someone play taps, but whether you were talking about trying to incorporate that into a broadcast somehow, wasn't quite sure what you were thinking.
Well, I was thinking it would be part of the broadcast, but you're talking one person with a camera, not a whole crew.
Okay, just want to make sure that we're fully cognizant of everyone who'd be involved. And
I'm just saying it's a thought. I mean, you can say it won't work. I'm just saying it's an idea.
And Scott, I would support if one person went to the common and we had, went down in history as one, one resident.
Yeah, exactly.
Was there to honor, and to represent the town, to honor and to continue our Memorial Day tradition. I think that would be symbolic and, would be a nice note in history about this time for our community, that we did not give up our common to the virus and still honored our veterans on Memorial Day. All right, so I think, Ryan, thank you for those plans, and thank you for the work you're doing on this, and continue to let us know, especially if it comes out in a video form. We'll do our best to share that around the community as well.
Thank you.
All right, anything else about COVID-19 before we move on? All right, we'll move on to our old and new business. Eric, would you like to announce the results of the new community electric aggregation contract?
Sure. So last Tuesday, we participated in a bid solicitation process with Good Energy along with 26 other communities in Massachusetts. We actually were able to secure a electric rate for our residents and businesses, the base energy rate of 0.10385. And then it essentially has 3 renewable energy tiers, and tier 2 would be the default rate for the town with an additional 10% renewable energy, and that rate will be 0.10708. Now that's just slightly more than what our base aggregation currently is in the current program. If we look at roughly a monthly consumption of 680 kilowatt hours per home, the annual difference is about $22 to $23 more per year. So it's not a significant amount more. And residents will have the option to opt down to the base aggregation rate if they want to, or they can opt up to 50% or 100% additional renewable energy. So this would, in effect, go into effect starting in January 2021. And we're going to be working with the Energy Committee and other residents to get the advertising out for this in the coming months and try to educate everyone before the actual start date comes.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Any
Thank you.
questions from the board? Tom?
I want to thank Eric for the great follow-up on this. And also I know dug up some other options for members of the town that have even more renewable content that might even be less expensive. So Eric, are you planning to incorporate some of those other options that you uncovered in the communication and education that's going to be going on?
We haven't really discussed that internally yet. Just because the last thing I want to do is pull too many people away from our current program. So I guess we might want to strategize what that might look like when we get advertising the town's default rate in the program and the additional program steps that we have in our current program. I think it might adversely impact our overall program if we have a large exodus of residents, businesses going to third-party contracts. So I think that was one of the things Good Energy was concerned with. If we say, for instance, set our default rate too high, they felt as if a 15 to 20% default rate may not be competitive with the basic supply rate for National Grid, which in turn might force people to want to go outside of our aggregation contract to seek third-party contracts.
Tom?
Yeah, I do think then we should talk about it in whatever form makes the most sense, because I appreciate your diligence in finding what some of those options are, and I would hate for residents to. I understand the concerns you have about people leaving the group purchase, but also if we're aware of other options that are even more beneficial to residents, just makes sense to me that we'd make sure that news got out there. That would be good public service, I would think.
Eric?
So yeah, I'm certainly happy to work with the Energy Committee, Good Energy, and the interested residents, and I can circle back to the Board of Selectmen to provide you an update before we start going live with any information.
Great.
Andrea?
I mean, Eric, when you say with any of the interested residents, I assume, or I hope that you're talking about the group whose name I can't.
Climate
forget what-
Action? The
Thank
Climate
you.
Action Committee, I
The
think it is.
Climate Action Group, and that you'll be reaching out to them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think if there's a group where it's appropriate to encourage the other options that Eric found, I think that group could go even further than perhaps the town staff could in terms of sharing that and promoting the 100% renewable options that are out there. And that way we aren't working against the aggregation that we've committed to. All right, thank you, Eric. And I do not see, I thought maybe some folks would be on to discuss that, but I don't see any questions or comments coming about the electric aggregation. So I think we must have heard from everyone at our last meeting, and they must be satisfied with the results. So thank you, Eric. All right, our next item under old new business is a review of the Westford Cats annual meeting held on April 16th and to consider their appeal to the Board of Selectmen's intent to terminate the MOU. Tom?
So 1,000 thanks again to Mike Wells and his team for pulling off an amazing technical feat The meeting went off very smoothly.
I can
and
vouch for that. I was on.
So surprisingly smoothly, we found good ways to vote. We were able to be flexible on the fly because there were some smart suggestions from the floor about rules and procedures that we adopted as we went. So procedurally, I think it went very well. There's now impaneled or elected, I should say, a new board that's very enthusiastic and I think is committed to representing the community. When we took the vote together to send the cancellation letter, we did entertain the idea that if there was a free and open election held and with people that are properly representing the community, that we would consider that an adequate redress of the situation that we're having at Westford Cat. So from my point of view, that's been done. I think the new board is up and running. There's a lot of very capable people and a lot of energy there. And I think the procedure electing them was fair and open and well organized. So if happy to answer questions, but I think the intent tonight is that if we're all satisfied that the situation's been handled in a good way, that we could take the decision tonight to vote to rescind that cancellation letter. So that's maybe what we're arcing to. So maybe first your question, with your permission, Elizabeth, maybe first questions from the board, and then I think Christy Bates might be out there.
I'll unmute
Is it-
Christy if you'd like to
the
speak.
new
Christy.
the new Westford
chime
Cat
in.
board chair, who can answer questions as well.
Great. Congratulations, Christy, and thank you for stepping up to that role.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? I would just have
If
one
the-
comment, and that is, the concerns that were raised. I think the previous board had some valid concerns about the future of Westford Cat, and I know the new board will need time to get into those issues. Tom, perhaps at whatever interval you feel is appropriate, the members of the new board could come back to this board and give an update. Perhaps that's, I think, in 3 months or something. Give them some time to get familiar with things, but then I think it would be helpful to receive an update.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea that I'll share with that board. And there's a capable finance committee forming. They'll be able to look at the budget issues. There's a fundraising committee that's going to be looking at alternative financing. I think 3 months is a good amount of time for that group to pull together their updated plan. If there aren't any other questions from the board, then I'll make a motion that this board rescind the letter serving as cancellation from the memorandum of understanding. I don't know, Jody, if you think there's anything we need to add to that motion or if that's sufficient.
No, that sounds fine.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? Christy, did you want to say anything before we take our vote?
Thanks, Elizabeth. I just wanted to say, especially thank you to Tom for helping us to get where we are. And he ran the meeting last week and it did go very smoothly. And another thanks to Mike Wells. And I just want to point out one thing, Elizabeth, is that per the current MOU, the Westford Cat does have to come back to the select board before July 31st with their annual report.
Perfect.
So that will be the financial reporting. If you need additional information, Tom can let us know.
Great. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a roll call vote on the motion to rescind the termination. Andrea,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you. And we've already moved through the consent agenda and the minutes. So Jody, you can move forward with the town manager's report.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a request from the Highway Department to accept a donation of 2 linden trees of 2.5-inch caliber from National Grid.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Andrea,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, and I think we have a question here.
Emily Teller.
You got it. Go ahead, Emily. Oh, wait, I think you're on mute. Sorry. Oh, it says self-mute, Emily. You have to unmute yourself.
How's that?
There we go.
Am I
Go ahead,
talking?
Emily.
Okay.
Yes.
You all know I'm a tree hugger and a tree lover, and I tried to stand up for those 1,000 trees that they cut down. But they were for a good reason. And I would just like to ask that if National Grid wants to give us any more, we welcome them with open arms. This seems like a pretty small caliper, but I guess be picky. But I talked to Chip about this today, so I know a little more. And I sort of feel like National Grid owes us another 998 trees. But I would just hope that the board and the town would welcome any more donations and let National Grid know that, because there are places we could put them.
Thank you, Emily. Related to that, Jody, wasn't there some money to purchase additional trees or something? I'm trying to remember the details from that discussion with National Grid.
We had to apply for a grant,
Okay,
and then it was a pretty significant application, but they already gave us more than they'd given any other town. But there is a grant process that I think Chip and Jim Dwayne may know about, and I can retrieve that back up if they don't. But it's National Grid has to invite us to apply, and then we get some
Right.
trees or money back.
right. Okay. Jody, could you just follow up maybe with Emily, follow up on that and see if there are additional trees
Absolutely.
coming, or if we get 2 trees in exchange for all that tree work?
Yeah, I will absolutely follow up on that. So thank you.
Thank
So
you.
actually, did you vote? You did
Um,
vote to accept, right? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I also have a request from the fire department to accept a grant from the Greater Lowell Community Foundation through its Center for Business Philanthropy partnership with Net Scouts Heart of Giving grant in the amount of $2,500 for personal protective equipment.
Motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. And we'll take a roll call vote. Andrea,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a request for approval 2 or 3 contracts. Lowell General Hospital for an advanced life support affiliation agreement as requested by the fire department. And a 1-year contract extension with cooling and heating specialists for preventative maintenance and emergency on-call services at the rate of $118 from the facilities department. And a 1-year contract extension with FM Generator for preventative maintenance in the amount of $7,425 by the facilities. And one more on the next page, a 1-year contract extension with Ombre Elevator Services for preventative maintenance and emergency on call in the amount of $12,680 from the facilities department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the board? All right, Andrea,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you. And do I have a motion to waive the reading of correspondence?
I think Jody has a
Jody
question.
has her hand up.
Sorry, I have a little dialogue screen there. Okay, go ahead, Jody.
I just want to mention that we've received so many donations from residents and businesses, and I've been sending them thank you letters, which are in your outgoing mail, and you'll have more next week. I do have them on the town manager's Facebook page, but it's really remarkable. And I actually got a call from the father of a nurse at Mass General Hospital today, and his daughter, who was a nurse there, they received a dinner for the entire nursing ward they were told from the town of Westford. So I don't know who that was from. I would love to know so we could thank that person or that business, and I'm investigating, but it was a wonderful gesture. And I just want to say how grateful we are for everything people are doing to support our emergency responders and the nurses and everyone else who's helping with this pandemic.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion?
Reading of the correspondence.
Thank you, Mark.
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Andrea,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Andrea?
yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Aye. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night, Westford.
Good night.
Good night. Stay